Thank you. Thank you so much, Jake. And thank you, Don, for the invitation to address some of your clients. And we hope we're going to be able to put together a meaningful hour or so together. And what we're going to be doing is taking a look through a number of websites and some recorded videos, etc. Hopefully all geared toward giving your audience a pretty firm handle on what's going on within the California regulatory community in regards to CalSavers. Let me go ahead and share my screen and share. Didn't look like it. Are you taking your screen right now? Do you see the CalSavers website?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be taking a look at the CalSavers website. We'll be taking a look at the State Treasurer's website. We'll also be taking a look at the website that I've developed with Doug Kerr, the attorney, and with Mary Jane Eatson, a plan document specialist, that will help talk about an alternative that we think is a good fit for employers that don't actually feel that CalSavers is a good fit. But let's start at the beginning and talk about the CalSavers program. The California Treasurer's website is here, and to get to some of the core information about CalSavers, you need to click on programs. And one of the programs listed is this CalSavers Retirement Savings Board. And that takes you to this subpage of the California Treasurer's website. And through the bar over on this side, you'll see a number of links. One of the things that we'll jump into right away is this history and background and the history of CalSavers. So in this section, you'll take a look that this program's actually been around, or at least been in development, all the way back to the mid-2000s. It was in 2008 that Assemblyman Kevin DeLeon was very concerned about the plight of, I think some of the studies indicated over 7 million Californians, working Californians, who had no access to retirement programs. So they put together a series of investigative studies, working with Cal Berkeley and a number of other organizations to try and figure out what could be done for Californians. And through that period of 2013 to 2016, they put together an extensive feasibility study and figuring out what would need to happen in the legislative area to make this CalSavers concept come aboard. Now, CalSavers isn't the only state retirement program of its type. I think Illinois and Oregon also have programs that are similar to the CalSavers program. But CalSavers is definitely one of the major ones up and running. So that whole program, if somebody wants to know more about the history, you can definitely go to the State Treasurer's website to get more information about that. What I think I'll do now is share a short video. It's only about 2 minutes or so, created by CalSavers to help explain the program. So let me open that and make sure we are sharing the right screen. So hopefully everybody's seeing a cartoon picture of a lady.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, that's.
This is Emma. Emma owns Emma's Empanada Emporium. Together, she and her team deliver the best empanadas in town. Emma doesn't offer a retirement plan for her employees. So today, Emma is going to register for CalSavers, California's new retirement savings program. CalSavers ensures that all Californians have access to a simple, portable, low-cost way to save for the future. For employers like Emma, we've made facilitating CalSavers as easy as possible, focusing on a few basic tasks that are easy to complete. Remember, all employers with 5 or more employees who do not offer a retirement savings plan are required to join CalSavers. To facilitate CalSavers, Emma will visit employer.calsavers.com. Here, she will complete her company registration, set up her company's account, and remit payroll contributions. First, Emma will register her business by entering the access code CalSavers will send her and a few other pieces of information. Next, Emma will submit her roster of employees and finish setting up her account. She has 30 days from the time she completes her registration to upload her roster. If Emma wants, she can also identify someone to help her, such as one of her employees or payroll company representative. And if she gets stuck on any step, a professional client services team is ready to assist her. Finally, Emma will send employee contributions with each payroll and keep her roster up to date. Sound easy? It is. With CalSavers, we focus on ensuring that Emma's time is well spent so that she has time to manage her business. And what's more, there are no employer fees and no fiduciary liability. Eligible employers can register for CalSavers at any time, and the sooner you register, the sooner your employees can start saving. But remember that state law requires that you either offer your own retirement plan or register for CalSavers by defined deadlines. Did you know that workers are 15 times more likely to save for retirement if they have access to a way to save at work? Emma does. That's why she's excited to register her business today. And now is your opportunity. Start the registration process today.
I've circled here the fact that CalSavers is an automatic enrollment payroll deduction IRA. We'll come back to that concept in a moment. So one of the most important points to gather from that video is that if you already have a retirement program, if you have a 401k in place, you don't have to register with CalSavers, and none of this mandate will apply to you. CalSavers did do research with the federal government, and the 5500 process that is a mandatory filing for all retirement plans was a database that they double checked to see which California employers already had a federally approved ERISA type program for retirement. And the fact that all California employers are obviously known to the California regulatory authorities through payroll taxes, they matched up what California employers had as a complete list of all businesses against the 5500 filings, and winnowed out all of the employers that already had a program that was registered with the federal government. So that leaves the employers that don't have a retirement plan, at least apparently to California, to be, in essence, the target audience of getting employers motivated to create a retirement program. They're not forced to create a retirement program. They certainly can create their own. Most likely a 401k type program would be the fit for most California employers. But if they decided not to participate or create their own 401k, the intent of the CalSavers mandate is to, in essence, force employers into offering at least CalSavers as an alternative. But most importantly, CalSavers isn't mandatory to individual employees, but it is set up with a automatic enrollment feature. In other words, when you participate with CalSavers, the default position is for employees to be a participant, and only if the employee decides to waive their participation does the employee actually get out of the program. We're going to go into some of these rules in a little bit more detail in a moment. Let me share my screen again, though, with this page. So in addition to some of the background on CalSavers, at the Treasurer's website, CalSavers has its own website. Hopefully employers that are subject to CalSavers will spend some time going through this website and understanding what options, program details, the resources, etc. So in order to give you an overview of where CalSavers is at the moment, we'd like to take a look at some information that was reported to their board just in yesterday's CalSavers board meeting held virtually, but the data is up to date with information that through the end of April. I'm going to stop and reshare this page. Can everybody see a page with CalSavers logo up in the corner? Perfect. So this is where CalSavers is so far. They've had a total of over 10,000 employers registered. Of those, 6,700 employers actually have active rosters, and 3,600 have actually started payroll deductions. So far, they've got about $66 million already contributed through the CalSavers program. But probably most helpful is the information down at the bottom of this page. There's really 3 tiers that the law outlines for employers to become familiar with and either enroll in or create an alternative. Employers that have 100 or more employees had up until last September to create a program or join CalSavers. So any employer that's over 100 employees that hasn't already done so is out of compliance and could be facing penalties. The penalties for non-participation or non-compliance with either alternative program or CalSavers enrollment is $250 per employee. And after a 90-day window of following that first notice, it gets another $500 added. So employers that completely blow off CalSavers mandate could ultimately face a penalty of up to $750 per employee. Now, none of those penalties have started yet. According to the board meeting that was held just yesterday, their updated timing for even this first tier of employers is a series of kind of last notice letters going out over the next few months. But by December, they're contracted. That is, the CalSavers board has contracted with the federal or the franchise tax board, the FTB of California, in essence, California's IRS, to send penalty letters out. So those penalty letters to this first tier of employers will start going out in December. The goal of CalSavers is to motivate participation. So even though those penalties might be starting, they will be waiving those penalties for employers that do participate based on being facing the penalty. So they're not leaning heavily toward the penalty side. They do want to lean much more heavily toward encouraging compliance. But ultimately, the franchise tax board will have the ability to levy significant fines against employers that don't participate with these mandates. So the way we're in right now, the one that is almost upon us is this June 30th deadline. And this is for employers that have between 50 to 100 employees. And as you can see here, in terms of registered employers and this employer response rate, they're still, in terms of the group that didn't already have a 401k program, according to the federal guidelines, there is still over 60% of the employer population that haven't responded to the CalSavers. Now, when I say respond to CalSavers, they have to go on the CalSavers website, as the little video showed you, and register that they have an alternative program, or actually sign up and start participating with CalSavers. So in terms of total responding employers so far, for this tier, we're looking at 4,100 total employers have responded out of almost 11,000 employers in this tier. So again, more than 60% of employers in this 50 or more category have not taken the time yet to respond. Actually, stop the screen share. Let's share again. One thing I'd like to make note of is that this entire process of CalSavers actually did come under some legal attack. The Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association filed in federal court to stop CalSavers from rolling this program out. They felt it was a waste of taxpayer money, that there was no point in California government forcing employers to create retirement programs or join the CalSavers program. But the federal court has so far sided with California. It got interesting last year when the Trump administration's Department of Justice decided to file a brief in support of, or actually in opposition to CalSavers, in other words, in support of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association side of the argument, to try and thwart California from rolling the program out. But it was still a matter to be judged in the courts. It wasn't something that the Trump administration could just prevent all by itself. And now, obviously, we have a different administration. We've got the Biden administration. So this article here is making it clear that the Biden administration's Department of Justice has filed or removed the filing that the Trump administration had sent to the federal court. And now it's a much more of a neutral position of the executive branch regarding the issues of whether or not states have the right to create these retirement programs. So let's talk a little bit about the CalSavers website, some key elements in terms of double checking whether or not you actually have compliance is to be found under the program, the frequently asked questions. In terms of employer eligibility, as an employer, do I have to facilitate CalSavers? Well, if you already have a 403A program or 408K or a 408P, simple IRA programs, a 401K, these are programs that if you're already up and running with those, you don't have to participate in CalSavers. There's one of the items that we noticed on the list, though, that kind of stood out, and that's this payroll deduction IRA with automatic enrollment. Now, the concept of a payroll deduction IRA is something that's been around actually as long as IRAs have been around. So that goes all the way back to the 70s. And the concept of a normal payroll deduction IRA is the employer simply facilitates the movement of money from an employee's paycheck into the employee's directed IRA account, much like a automatic deposit with a checking account. An employer would allow an employee to make a slice of their paycheck go automatically into that account that is identified by the employee as their retirement fund. The concept of putting in an automatic enrollment on top of the payroll deduction IRA is something that was kind of a new concept, something that was in essence trailblazed by CalSavers, as you saw and actually can see at the bottom of the web page of CalSavers. They call themselves an automatic enrollment payroll deduction IRA program. That is how this program's been set up, and it's how, because all payroll deduction IRA programs have the advantage of not being burdened by the significant body of law called ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, set up in the 70s to regulate employers' promises to employees in light of retirement benefits. So payroll deduction IRAs come with none of the ERISA requirements, and that's how CalSavers was able to kind of create this program as a something that avoids potential ERISA responsibilities. Going back to the employer, other options, there are a lot of other resources that employers can get to in terms of understanding the program details. Let me pull up employer overview and start sharing again. So CalSavers has got a lot of downloadable information that employers can see about how the program works. So as a quick template for reviewing how CalSavers operates, there's a lot of information that can be gleaned by taking a look at the resources on both the Treasurer's website and the CalSavers website. This page is one of the resources that you can download from the CalSavers website. It goes into much more detail as to what your payroll department will have to do in order to participate with CalSavers. As you can see, this document itself is 11 pages, and it goes on to explaining how to designate payroll representatives and how to set up data files. It's a fair amount of involvement that you will have, even though The CalSavers folks will try and pitch this as a fairly turnkey operation. When you get into the details, you'll find that there's actually a fair amount that employers will need to do to be able to participate and have an ongoing enrollment without difficulties with the CalSavers program. Employers are probably also starting to see letters like this from the state treasurer, making sure that every employer that has not yet identified themselves as having an alternative program or has already signed up for CalSavers is being notified probably on a monthly basis that they need to do so ASAP. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. What I think we'll do now is take a look at a share and screen share one more time. And this is going to be a video that we put on our website. We created a program called Easy Savings for You as an alternative, where we're taking that concept of a payroll deduction IRA with automatic enrollment. And we've kind of modeled a program that's similar to CalSavers, meets the requirements of CalSavers, but allows the employer much more control about the flow of information. And it was a project that Mary Jane Eatson and Doug Kerr and I have worked on for over a year. And at the moment, we've got about 50 employers in the state of California that are using this program very successfully to A, meet their requirements of being in compliance with CalSavers, but B, to do it in a way that they're not involving their payroll system in dramatic ways with the CalSavers administrative burden. So let's take a quick look at this.
Hello again. In video 2, we're going to discuss why there's a need for the Easy Savings for You program. Again, my name's Ed McClements, and I run an insurance agency called McClements Insurance Services. It was about a year ago that one of my largest clients came to me and said, Ed, what do you know about this new CalSavers program? At the time, I had to admit, I had not even heard the term. But I did a little research, went online, checked out what was going on the California Treasurer's website, and at that time, the brand new website for CalSavers, and educated myself. In fact, I have a lot of my clients because I'm fairly well known in the industry for being able to take on confusing new regulations and help boil them down to the basics. And that's what my client was asking me to do. When we took a look at it, one of the things that came up was, should we just create a 401k plan and control it ourselves rather than participating in the CalSavers program? And based on the first 10 years or so of my career, where I did a lot of work with 401ks, I knew that going in that direction could pose some significant problems, at least for this client and a lot of my clients. So I said, no, let me take a little deeper look into this and see if there's any easier options. One of the things that is mentioned in the CalSavers material is that employers could set up a payroll deduction IRA program, a PDIRA. This is something that is well understood under the IRS and Department of Labor rules. We'll show you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But under the CalSavers information, they added an extra term with automatic enrollment. That automatic enrollment put an extra twist on the CalSavers program, at least the alternatives that an employer would need to explore to have a payroll deduction IRA work as a substitute for CalSavers. But looking into that a little bit deeper, it became clear to me that that might be a better solution for my clients. And since then, again, a year ago when we started doing the research, I've actually given presentations to about 6 live audiences up and down the state of California and 1 online webinar so far. I've worked with organizations and done presentations for the Agricultural Personnel Management Association, the California Farm Labor Contractors Association, and also the Grower Shippers Association in Salinas, California. And also over the last 4 months, we've been working extensively with my new team, the attorney and the plan document specialist, double checking my research to make sure we were on the right track and that collectively we thought we could bring a better solution to the marketplace. But in order to understand how that works, let's talk a little bit more about CalSavers. CalSavers, I think, has got great intentions and for many employers might be a very good fit, but not necessarily for all employers. There are what I call 7 heartburn issues that employers need to consider. Of those 7, the deadline is something that gets everybody's attention. If you have 100 or more employees, the original deadline was either participate in CalSavers by June 30th or risk penalties. That has been pushed back now to September 30th. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Also, there, as I mentioned, penalties for non-compliance. That catches employers' attention. There's a very broad definition of who is eligible for the program to the employer. In other words, if you've got somebody who's 18 years or older and is earning a paycheck with you, they're probably eligible for CalSavers. There's also a feature of auto-enrollment. Auto-enrollment implies that the employee has to actively opt out rather than opting in. So if the employee does nothing, the default status is the employee is assumed to want to participate in the CalSavers program. There's also an issue that gets into the legal weeds a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about this in successive videos after this one. But the long and the short of it is it's kind of a double-edged sword. What CalSavers is promising employers is minimal involvement in this program. And that's got a plus side, but it's also got a minus side. The plus side is obviously that employees do not have to make any contributions to the CalSavers program, and there's no liability to the employer for the CalSavers program. But the downside of that is the employer must keep a very hands-off relationship. They cannot advise or encourage or discourage employees from participating in CalSavers. And when it gets right down to it, they cannot even accept a waiver form for CalSavers. And CalSavers must be the active party doing all onboarding and communication about how the program works. So that makes things a little difficult. There's also, under the way CalSavers is set up, what's called Know Your Customer rules. Like any bank account, when CalSavers sets up an IRA for an employee, as a precursor, they must, under federal law, know enough about that individual to assure that they're eligible for participating in the financial system. In other words, there's going to be a mini background check on this employee. Do they have a valid Social Security number or tax ID number? Is their date of birth and name consistent with the Social Security number information? If any of your employees fails that background check, they have to be excluded from participating in CalSavers. And on an ongoing basis, the way CalSavers works is, again, because the communication will be going back and forth between the employee and CalSavers, CalSavers will be making information available on a website that employers must check before they run every single payroll to double check whether or not employees have made any changes since the last payroll. So because of these heartburn issues, at least for my clients, it became clear that we needed to further explore the options that might be out there. So we're going to take you through the CalSavers website a little bit to give you a little bit more meat on the bones on this issue. In the CalSavers website, there's a lot of great information. We'll be going into CalSavers in much more detail in a later video, but I need to hit a couple of high points for you for this video. Let's take a look at the deadline for employer contributions. That's under Program Details. As you can see, the employer has, if you have 100 or more employees, up to September 30th to comply with the program. Also, under Frequently Asked Questions, under Employer Registration, are there penalties for non-compliance? Yes, per the Unemployment Code section 1088.9 subsection B. As you can see, if an employer fails to participate, there's a $250 penalty per employee, and if that is not complied with within 90 days after notice, of that penalty, the penalty can be increased to $500 per eligible employee. In terms of the broad worker eligibility, again, under the frequently asked questions, eligibility, are all employees eligible for the program? Any employee that is at least 18 years of age and is subject to a W-2 from that employer is eligible for the program. There are no abilities with the CalSavers program to have a waiting period for your employees, and you can't go up to age 21. This isn't an employer-based program. This is CalSavers program, and anybody who works for you who is a W-2 employee and is at least 18 years of age is eligible to participate in the program. In terms of the auto-enrollment feature, under Resources, Employee Information Packet, the employee gets 30 days to decide, but there is automatic enrollment. So if the employee does nothing, the employer is instructed to take 5% of their gross pay and put it into the program for them. In terms of what I call the dual-edged sword of ERISA exemption, again, under the employer's program details, you can find a section down here, activities that employers are not responsible for. CalSavers does not include any employer fees or employer match for contributions. You are also not responsible for enrolling employees, disseminating information, or answering questions about the program, managing any investment options, including the choice of investment funds, etc. You're not in charge of processing any distributions. You're not to answer any questions about investment options. Employers should not give tax or investment advice. In managing the employee changes or account maintenance, which include but are not limited to the contract information and beneficiary information, are not to be handled by the employer. They're to be handled by CalSavers. All of these things are requirements so that the employer stays out of harm's way when it comes to an employer being considered to have offered a retirement program that qualifies under federal law, ERISA. That does also preclude the employer from accepting the opt-out waiver form. So that is a critical part of how and why the program can be a little difficult for an employer to handle. Before we leave the CalSavers website, I'd like to show you a couple of more details. On the bottom of their page,
We've covered some of that information already. Let's go ahead and share the web pages again. So as a result of some of these issues that you can see with the CalSavers program, we decided that it would be more appropriate if we explored the payroll deduction IRA with automatic enrollment concept, and we coined the term Easy Savings for You. Now, Easy Savings for You is not a company in itself. It's simply a website and an educational platform that was developed by Doug Kerr and Mary Jane Eatson and myself to give employers the resources to fully understand what's going on with this program, CalSavers. In fact, we've developed a total of 10 videos that go into all aspects of this. There's an intro. There is what you just saw, a good chunk of, why is this type of program needed as an alternative. There's a video 3 that you need to push this button and register for, because CalSavers deals more extensively exactly with CalSavers, and CalSavers itself said, we don't really want you to put our content on your webpage without having some kind of a clarification to identify who's be watching that. So you do have to give you have to register with a name and a email address in order to get access to video number 3, which again deals with CalSavers. The legal battle over CalSavers has got its own separate video, which has now been updated with the new Biden administration information. Video 5 has to do with the basics of ERISA, so that employers, if they don't want to use CalSavers and they don't want to use our alternative, have a better understanding of the legal framework of ERISA, which becomes the legal bedrock under which any other retirement plan would be understood in terms of employer responsibilities. Then we get into, with video number 6, retirement plan basics. What are all the options that employers may be looking at for retirement plans? A tour of retirement plan types that employers would be able to access. And because most employers would probably be most appropriate to be looking at a 401k, there's a whole hour-long video just on 401ks. Now, I don't sell 401ks. I'm not a 401k advisor. But in terms of preparing employers for looking at all the alternatives, we felt it would be essential to give an information resource that they can look through and get their arms around all of the issues an employer might want to consider before they jump into a 401k. Video 9 has to do with IRAs, kind of the soup to nuts evaluation of what are all the terminology and what kind of details, what again an employer needs to know in terms of setting up a payroll deduction IRA program and potentially being asked some questions about IRAs from their employees. In the video 10, the last one, is an implementation video where we take a look at this easy savings for you concept and give you information about how we help employers. Go ahead and stop sharing and just have you take a look at the binder we put together for employers. It has a lot of information about 401ks. It's got information about other retirement plans. It's got information that we gleaned from the CalSavers itself. Some of the PDFs that I've shown in the video presentation here are already hard-coded into this binder. In total, there's about 300 to 400 pages of information in the binder we provide. But most importantly, there's a set of plan operational documents that, if you're using our program, walk you through what your employees would need us to have in their hands in terms of an announcement form, both in English and Spanish. All of these forms are simplified to kind of one-page form for an opt-out or an opt-in or direction to the employer as to where the employee contributions would go. So it gives you a kind of a full roadmap on how to implement your own payroll deduction IRA, with basically a mirroring of what CalSavers would be doing, but you're in control as an employer. You're able to share conversations with your employees. You're most importantly able to take an employee's opt-out form. We do think that most employees and the clients that we represent in agriculture, because of their varying work hours, etc., don't find that the automatic enrollment into a CalSavers 5% automatic savings program is a good fit for them. So they would rather opt out of that program, and our program allows you, the employer, to be in control of that whole process. So we think that it's a meaningful solution for the kind of unique needs of a lot of employers out there that do not want to participate in CalSavers. In terms of what an employer would need to do to take access, you can certainly share the screen again. Going back to our website, Easy Savings for You is a fairly easy website thing to remember. There is a downloadable form where it's just one page of information that employers would fill out to get started with us to solve these types of problems and give them a payroll deduction IRA with automatic enrollment of their own that doesn't force them into having to share weekly payroll information with the state government agency of CalSavers. Jake, we're getting pretty close to 45 minutes or so into the presentation. Do we have any questions that we would?
Yeah, I got a couple questions here. So first off, is there any penalty to an employer who actually has a compliant retirement plan but forgets to register it with CalSavers?
I don't think so, no. I think when you get to a point of actually seeing a letter from the Franchise Tax Board, which you probably wouldn't, because they've probably already identified you as somebody who has got a retirement program. But my advice would be to go on the website and go ahead and make sure or contact CalSavers and double check that you're already identified as an employer that has an alternative program. But I don't think that there would be any penalty befalling an employer that actually did have a qualifying alternative retirement program in place.
Can fines be levied against an employer for non-compliance before a letter or reminder is sent?
No, no, from everything I've seen, and again, attending a 2.5-hour board meeting yesterday where they were updating the board on the status between CalSavers and the Franchise Tax Board, they haven't even started the true implementation and penalty phases yet. And the conversation was clear that the goal of CalSavers is to encourage compliance, not to levy penalties. So they're going to be bending over backwards to make sure employers have every opportunity to be in compliance, to document their alternative retirement program. So getting a penalty before you see any of these letters is not a likely occurrence.
Did you say that if we participate in CalSavers, that employee status is verified? If there are issues with employee ID, how will we be notified?
Well, you'll be sending in a roster of all employees. To the best of your knowledge, these employees are all legal. And when CalSavers gets it, there will be protocols that they go through to figure out whether or not these people are actually eligible to start an IRA program. They will not report to you as to why an employee became ineligible for setting up a program, but they will report to you that these employees are ineligible for the program. So you won't get specific knowledge as to how and why the employee fell out. It might have been that the employee individually contacted CalSavers and said, I don't want to participate, or there could be other issues, but the bottom line is CalSavers does do, as federal law requires with any kind of a creating of an IRA account, a know your customer basic banking rules require that people's date of birth and social security and name and address check out with federal records before they can allow them to be a participant in an IRA program. So that information that'll come back to you as the employer will be, here are the employees that are eligible for CalSavers, and here are the ones who are ineligible for CalSavers. CalSavers will not be sharing that information with federal immigration authorities, but it does create, I think, a point of concern for employers having to involve themselves in yet one more step of the process of sharing information with governmental authorities and having a squishy feeling in their stomach, let's say, about what's going
Exactly.
on.
And Ed, if I could
Yes,
butt in here for a second, there's no, although there is no coordination now with the federal government, it's always a possibility that sometime in the future that type of reporting may change. There's no guarantees that if another administration gets in there and decides to start cooperating with the federal government, there may be reporting as far as employers are concerned and employees that don't have valid Social Security numbers. So that's another reason we highlighted the difference in the distinction that is offered by the Easy Savings for You plan.
Exactly. Jake, do we have any other questions?
Yes, just a couple more. If an
Okay.
employee does not qualify for the company provided retirement plan, will we need to activate CalSavers for them?
No. So it's a great question because a lot of people do get confused. They say, well, most of our workers actually don't qualify for our retirement plan based on the waiting period of our 401k. And therefore they're concerned that they have to offer CalSavers for everybody who isn't a participant in their retirement plan. That's not the way these rules work. If you have a retirement plan meeting the federal guidelines for how to have eligible employees in your program, that's all you need to do. The fact that as a business, you offer a retirement plan, even if it excludes some of those workers, you're not forced to offer a CalSavers as a stopgap for anybody who didn't qualify for your program. So no, you don't have to participate in CalSavers when you have a retirement plan in place.
Uh, Two more questions. Is your program available in Spanish?
Yes, it is. All of the employee-facing materials that we have, all the onboarding information forms, the opt-out forms, et cetera, all done in a bilingual manner with people who have got a great deal of experience in doing translations for our agricultural workers throughout the state. We even, by the way, have a bilingual video that's 7 minutes or so that employees can share with their employees in addition to the forms that will give you a bilingual format. This bilingual video will walk that employee through, what is this? Why are we being offered a payroll deduction IRA? What do I need to do to sign up, or what do I need to do to waive off this program? So that 7-minute video can be downloaded to employees' employer's website, or pushed out to your employees if you've got information with their cell phone numbers, et cetera, to help educate your employee base about this easy savings for you alternative.
Okay, and we got some more questions coming in. Would it be a red flag to CalSavers if very few employees participated? Have you seen any inquiries by CalSavers?
No, I haven't seen any inquiries. I think their entire focus at the moment is getting as many employers to register with them, let CalSavers know that, yes, we have an alternative in place, or sign up for CalSavers. But I haven't seen any pressure being put on by CalSavers to investigate employers that have for example, 90% waiver rate, where employees would have automatically been enrolled, but now 90% of them are saying, no, they don't want it. I haven't seen any evidence whatsoever that CalSavers is concerned with those situations. So there's no mandate to make sure your employees participate. In fact, it's very clear that employees have the option to opt out of this program. It's just the fact that the program's set up on an automatic enrollment basis where employees are assumed to want to participate. That creates a lot of confusion because that's just not the way normal business is done. But that's definitely an alternative that was specifically picked by our state regulators and governmental legislators to encourage people to participate in a retirement plan. They knew the statistics that people are much more likely to participate in something that they don't have to lift a finger to participate in, rather than being asked, you got to fill out forms in order to participate.
If we forget to check the CalSavers website for employee changes before sending in the contributions, what is the consequence to the employer?
Well, if there's no changes this week, there's probably no consequence, but it certainly could get messy if you forgot to update it, but an employee decided to opt out. Because if an employee went from being participating to this week deciding to opt out by communicating with CalSavers, well, CalSavers has got that information now. They put it on their website, but unless you, as an employer, have coordinated your weekly payroll with that new updated information, the employee thinks he's done everything he's necessary to stop these deductions coming out of his check. But you, as the employer, will continue to take a deduction. And once you've taken a deduction, you're sending it off to CalSavers. So CalSavers has got the money, but the employee is going to say, what the heck's going on? You didn't stop my deductions. And then you'll go in and go, wow, yeah, I guess we missed the update, so we didn't catch it. But you're not going to be in possession of the funds because you've already sent it in to CalSavers. It's obviously creates an administrative our departments are loath to wade into.
Okay. Do you charge a fee to employers calling you for consultation?
Actually, a good question. We don't charge a specific fee for questions and answers on our program. We do have a fee, though. I originally developed this program because I've got a lot of large agricultural clients in the insurance space where I do benefits for them. And when that one major client told me, hey, Ed, what do you know about CalSavers? And I dove into this a year and a half ago, I realized that I got a lot of clients that are going to be in harm's way, let's say, because of how this works. That's what gave me the impetus to pull together Mary Jane and Doug and create this program as an easier alternative. So putting together the program, though, for my clients, it's for free. I don't charge them anything. Now, I still pay Doug and Mary Jane for their times and services, but my clients aren't billed for the effort to be a participant in the programs. If you're not a client of mine, we decided to come up with a package price. Just make it super simple. It's a one-time fee of $2,000 for employers to be able to get all of our binders, our materials, access to our videos, and personal access to Mary Jane and Doug and I to answer questions. So an employer will get custom forms developed with their name, business name, et cetera, on it, and with the right timeline in terms of when the announcements are going to be made to your employees, access to that Spanish employee video that I mentioned before. So all of that comes at a package price of $2,000. And it's not an annual fee, it's just a one-time charge. Now, if it turns out for some reason, we haven't had any of these circumstances pop up, but if an employer ran into some kind of legal issue over their payroll deduction IRA program with automatic enrollment that we helped them start, that is where Doug and Mary Jane would get involved. And most likely, if it's just a couple of phone calls, there's no additional charge. But if somehow, some way, this became a very extensive project to try and extricate an employer from a situation they found themselves in, then yes, there would be a reasonable fee charged, most likely by Doug, to be able to provide his legal expertise to help that employer. But again, not on the front go. There'd be, I think we calculated a couple of hours of free time of Doug's built into the initial fee of $2,000.
If we have the resources, can we offer a matching plan through your plan?
No, very good question. This program is meant to mirror the guidelines for payroll deduction IRAs and how CalSavers is created. Our program you would in essence create an ERISA violation by offering a program where the employer is making contributions into our program. So payroll deduction IRAs, even ones with automatic enrollment, have to be completely funded by employee contributions. There's no space in our program for an employer contribution. And so our direction would be, if an employer was hard set on creating an employee contribution, you absolutely should look at our video on 401ks, look at our video on ERISA, look at our videos on how retirement plans operate, and go in that direction. Find somebody who can advise you on starting a 401k plan rather than looking to our solution, because our solution does not allow space for employer contribution. Any other questions?
Last question. Do employers need to file the 5500 form, or what form is required for IRS?
Well, for our program, no such forms. The huge advantage of this payroll deduction IRA with automatic enrollment is that it avoids all of the extra overhang and legal complications and fees, et cetera, and audits that come with a traditional retirement plan like a 401k would. So 401ks file 5500s every year. Our program avoids that. So there is no 5500 filing necessary.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ed, so much for sharing this important topic.
Doug or Mary Jane, do you have anything that you think needs to be said to make sure our audience gets a good bite at this?
I think you've covered it all, Ed, very well.
Yes, that's a pretty accurate rendition of where your alternatives are. And either case, effectively, you have three alternatives. The one is to provide your own plan as a 401k or something along that line that allows you to not be involved in the CalSavers program. And then, or you can just go with the CalSavers program. And then finally, as the third option, is to go with the Easy Savings for You, which doesn't provide as much information to the state of California, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, great. If we did not address your questions today, or you'd like to receive a copy of the presentation, send us a note at info@calworksafetyhr.com. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe, healthy, and have a wonderful day, guys.
Thank you all for the opportunity to share the information.
Thank you.
So long.